And what the fuck is up, gamers? Thank you so much for tuning into the Heroes Blade Vibe Check podcast. I'm your host, Empress Quinn. I've got my co-host here with me, Cole. Say what's up, Cole.
What is up? It is the new year. Doesn't feel like a whole lot's changed within the last couple weeks, but if anything, it's been super busy magic-wise.
Yeah, you kind of hit the ground running. And I guess it makes sense that there wouldn't be a whole lot of difference given that materially it's only been a week and not a whole lot changes in that amount of time. You know how it is. Time is so weird.
Mm-hmm. Might be so, well, I don't know. Hey, real time? Real passage of time, our perspective of real time? Pretty weird already. Magic time? Even weirder.
Weren't you tweeting about that earlier?
I was tweeting about it or a couple days ago, and I even made a TikTok about it. And just as a reminder to everyone, the War of the Spark will be coming up 5 years old this year, very quickly. I think in May. Yeah. So you know, if you feel like you got grays shooting out, if you already don't have it, definitely will make you feel like you should be starting to grow gray hairs from realizing it's been 5 years. Magic time, yeah, crazy. I'm like, I thought that was 3 years ago. No, it's 5.
Oh, goodness. We've had to put up with Narset Parter Avails for 5 whole years.
But it simultaneously feels like no time at all and feels longer than it should. So yeah.
True, bestie.
We are, I was complaining about, well, I'm not complaining, I was like, oh man, Nin the Pain Artist and Brimstone Volley, and then I'm like, Innistrad was in 2011, that was 13 years ago, and Nin the Pain Artist was probably that same year, or maybe a little earlier, I don't know, it's been a crazy wild ride.
I love being on it, though. Let's get right into it. Who's passing the vibe check lately for you?
Well, as part of some things that we'll be talking about in a second here, I was like, all right, it's time to play some new decks, and I had a really busy Saturday game, or game day. I got 6 games on the last Saturday of the big gathering I went to. I'm like, all right, it's time to bring out Yasova Dragonclaw again. And she does pass the vibe check. So let's talk about Yasova. So she's 2 and a green for a 3/2 human warrior with trample. And her ability is when you go to combat, you pay 1 and 2 hybrid blue and red. And then you gain control of an opponent's creature of power less than Yasova's power. So, you do that, you gain control of something, you threaten something, and then in my case, I just sacrifice things and throw it at people's faces, or sacrifice it for mana, or do whatever, because, that's just what I love to do.
You're a naughty, steely boy.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of it. Someone called me out, where they're like, is this just not your Sauron deck? And I'm like, first of all, that's Rakdos versus Temur, so.
Yeah, the other one is Rakdos, and secondly, mind your business.
Yeah, exactly. I'm staying in my lane here. So yeah, going from 3 to 6 power, on curve, if, everything kind of lines up, you go, turn 1, whatever, turn 2, Hero's Blade, turn 3, Yasova Dragonclaw, she's a 6/4, go get 'em. And yeah, it's a great time. It's a good time.
Hell yeah.
What about you?
For me, the Wise Mothman passes the vibe check. I've been playing a bit against that card as it turns out you can just write the rules text down on a piece of paper and play with cards as soon as you have the rules text if you want to. So we've been doing that a little bit. And playing against the Wise Mothman deck that used to be a Muldrotha deck. Let's read that guy real quick.
Because, that card will be coming out pretty quick.
Fallout, whenever that drops. So the Wise Mothman is a 3/3 legendary creature insect mutant for 1 black, green, blue. And it's got flying, and whenever the Wise Mothman enters the battlefield or attacks, each player gets a rad counter. Whenever 1 or more non-land cards are milled, put a +1/+1 counter on each of up to X target creatures, where X is the number of non-land cards milled this way. And then I guess I'm kind of legally obligated to tell you about rad counters here. So, radiation, at the beginning of your pre-combat main phase, if you have any rad counters, mill that many cards. For each non-land card milled this way, you lose 1 life and a rad counter.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the Wise Mothman is this whole, like, mill Voltron deck, and that guy being 3 power, comes down, picks up the Hero's Blade, moves to 6, and then you're, like, immediately moving to milling and putting more +1/+1 counters on him, because the odds of all of your opponents not having a non-land card that they mill is pretty low. So you're going to get, like, 1 +1/+1 counter, and at that point, you're at 7. So it's just a really big power boost, and the guy has flying, so you're almost certainly getting in because he comes down on turn 4 if you're doing your job right with your mana base. It's all pretty strong. I'm liking what I'm seeing so far, and I'm excited to see more of the cards that come out in that set and what they do, just like in synergy with the Wise Mothman.
Yeah, because like if we're looking at anything like the Warhammer 40k decks, we're obviously going to be seeing a splash of reprints, possibly, hopefully, maybe ones that, like, heavily deserving, heavily needed. But we're also just going to be seeing a bunch of just new cards that are referential to Fallout. Mm-hmm. And from the looks and sounds of it, visually, it might reference the first or second game, but, like, mechanically and character-wise, it's definitely going to reference 3 New Vegas, 4, and 76. I'm hoping, because we've only seen a handful of things from the preview, like the early previews, I'm hoping we do eventually get, like, the Brotherhood of Steel rep in some way, shape, or form. I just don't know how they're going to do that.
I don't know a whole lot about Fallout, so you're going to have to hold my hand through the lore on this.
Yeah. So, like, the Mothman was from Fallout 76 because they were in Virginia, and they're like, we're going to do a bunch of, like, cryptids and stuff. We're like, okay, that's cool. I'm just looking out for giant power armor dudes, you know? That's just my whole thing. I'm hoping it's,
gotcha.
like, Boros or Mardu.
Yeah, there's no way we don't get giant power armor dudes. That seems like an easy hit to, like, get hype from people who like that. And also,
I just hope it's legendary.
Like a robot.
Yeah, like, there's going to be a bunch of robots anyway. And Fallout, like, that's the thing about Fallout. Like, you get this really, like, pulpy 1950s retro-futuristic kind of stylized America. Mm-hmm. Including all of, like, the hyper propaganda that you kind of expect to it, of, like, oh, it's the golden age of America, and women are in dresses at home, and we're fighting the commies, and then nuclear war goes off, and then, like, it's just, yeah, it's pretty funny, it's pretty great. Also simultaneously incredibly horrible, because you're like, wow, this place is an absolute shit show. But, everyone, currency is bottle caps from, like, the most addictive and highly toxic cola drink you've ever had in your life, where one of it is glowing. Nuka-Cola Quantum, like, is literally super irradiated that it glows. Nice. So when you drink it, you're like, yes, the isotopes. I love tasting half-life decaying of a nuclear element. So yeah, we're gonna see what happens. I think we're probably, like, as usual in the hyper release state that we're in with Magic, probably not long after Ravnica murder of Carla Manor, like, we're probably gonna hear about some Fallout stuff pretty soon after that.
Yeah, it'll be soon. It'll come when it comes. In the meantime, I'm kind of just, like, playing whatever I've got available, and
it is pretty cool. Like, it's like, if they're going to do that, I hope they do add Mutate to, like, that deck that the Mothman's in, but we'll just have to wait and see.
Yeah, I mean, you're already playing Voltron, and Mutate wants, like, a big stack of creatures anyway, wants to be going tall, so I don't think that that's a bad idea. The dude already has most of the evasion that I think Mutate, like, adds, but there's other stuff that you can do, I'm sure. It seems like there was a lot of unexplored territory.
And yes, I want Mutate to come back. I'm all for it. It seems really cool, and that's my stance on that. That's it.
All right, we got a lot of show to get through. What's your next guy?
Okay, I guess we'll do other people's shoutouts. right now, and we'll just do it lightning fast, because I had put up on Twitter, hey, does anyone have any commanders that think they passed the vibe check? And we got 4 options here. Nice. Technically 5, but we'll just... Well, actually, it's like 6, because everyone was throwing in multiple stuff, but we'll just go through it really quickly here. All right. Light, a.k.a. the Phyrexian on Twitter, says, we got to shorten the commander damage clock somehow, and their options were Zakama Primal Calamity and Indominus Rex Alpha. They're high power, so I'm just saying, like, automatically yes. Zakama's got 9 power, so going to 12, and then just being able to double tap someone to death if left unimpeded.
And if you've got double strike that you've set up already, then that's GG's.
GG's, yeah. And same thing with Indominus Rex, entering with counters on it, depending on, like, the creatures that you discarded. And on that list is Double Strike, and Double Strike, I'm pretty sure, in some way, shape, or form, exists in blue, black, and green. So, getting a 6/6 to a 9/9, yeah, like, you're... or a 9/8 will be pretty quick. So Light, yes, definitely correct. Pass the vibe check.
Yeah, I'm signing off on that. I think they do pass the vibe check.
Trenton, who just goes by Trenton 907, put in 3, but we'll just put this the first 2 in a pair here. SCR, Wardwing Familiar, and Timna the Weaver.
Oh, all day, babes. SCR's a cheap flyer. You pick up that, and then you're going to town, and people are simply not blocking because they don't have enough flyers. And Timna, my ever-loving wife, has lifelink, so of course you want to boost her power. Putting a knife on her that boosts her power is one of the best things that you can be doing with that card. Gamers, if you've not played Hand of Vecna with Timna, give that a try for me. Tell me how that feels.
I am now afraid. No, wait, don't attack me for 10, gain 10 life, and then pay 3 life to draw 3 cards. This seems very bad.
Yeah, that's exactly what I would like to be doing. Thank you so much for outlining my plans.
So yeah, those 2 definitely pass the vibe check, and especially as a pair, that seems really great.
Oh, yeah.
The other one from Trenton here, just from a deck he's been fiddling with recently, as part of his... kind of like 32 deck league thing he's got with his buddies. Jan Jansen Chaos Crafter. Red, white, black, 3/3 haste, Gnome Artificer. Tap, sacrifice an artifact creature, create 2 treasure tokens. Tap, sacrifice a non-creature artifact, create 2 1/1 colorless construct artifact creature tokens. I know Trenton's trying to trick me here, and I'm sure we'll hear about it. Because I'm saying no, because, like, Jan Jansen just wants to be...
Jan Jansen could not give a single fuck about the combat step for himself.
We untapping ourselves somehow, we're tapping again, we're going to be making treasures and constructs, and we don't give a fuck. We do not care.
Yeah, like, you can make creatures, but this probably is a treasure burn deck, and I don't think you're doing the combat step for any, like, real damage in most of these decks, probably.
Nah. MJ from the MTG and Quarantine podcast says he tweeted and did not put something up because this felt directly more to me than you. He says, you already know Wink. And I'm just going to say...
That's Soul Hoarder.
It's Kothebed Soul Hoarder. Okay, you do know, yeah.
Obvious.
That is MJ's, like, favorite card. He loves running it in this incredibly treasure-heavy meta that EDH finds itself in.
Oh, yeah, dude. MJ, I see you. I will still windmill slam a Kothebed and be like, this'll kill me, but it'll be a great ride.
But it'll be a great time, yeah. So 4 double black for a demon that's a 6/6 flying creature. When a permanent owned by another player is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, you draw a card and you lose 1 life. So someone's like, I cracked 10 treasures. You're like, cool.
I'll draw 10 cards, lose 10 life, power at any price.
So, this, for one of Liliana's contract givers, the most fair and probably the most sadistic one that you could ever run as a commander, and I applaud MJ for holding that banner the same way I hold a Bloodrick banner.
Yeah, windmill slamming that in a Smothering Tithe meta that takes strength of character, and I respect it. But does it pass the vibe check? That's going to be a yes from me, gamers. It's like a 6/6 flyer. Absolutely, put +3 power on that all day.
So yeah, like also the thing that I look at is like any extra toughness. It just makes combat and blocking and everything a lot more. You make people think about it. So yeah, definitely. Nick, Plaid, the last one we got here, saying Baral and Kari Zev. It's been making me think about, is it combat? The blade curves into the card, and First Strike Menace makes them easy to get into the red zone, and then you can threaten a cantrip into after equipped, a 5/3 Ragavan token for blocks and attacks thereafter. So this just gets me, I just give a windmill slam to this. Them being a 3-mana 2/4 First Strike Menace, and then you cast your first instant or sorcery spell each turn. You can cast a lesser value of that mana, like a spell of a lesser mana value than whatever you cast. And then if you don't do that, you can create a 2/1 Ragavan token copy and it gains haste on the turn. So yeah, that does seem actually pretty cool, just to have sweet free blocks.
Yeah, I hadn't really read that card very up close until this moment, and I do think that that's a sweet, like, is it combat deck with your, like, that's the deck for your combat tricks.
Yeah,
and you absolutely want to add the power to them with the knife for free. And Rag's also getting the free equip because he's legendary too.
He's legendary, yeah. It's like, really cool.
Yeah, it's really strong. Love to see it.
So yeah, 100%. We are 1, 2, 3, 4, 6 out of 7 for all those. I totally also miscounted with how many options there were. So yeah, thank you everyone for sharing your commanders, and if they pass the 5 check, 6 out of 7 seems pretty good for this time around.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
Now let's move on to articles or content or news or just things that we've consumed. First things first, obviously, you know, a lot of us are, you know, for the two of us specifically, we've been playing online Magic for a very long time. I've been playing, I think, since 2019, and then pandemic hit, and then I really leaned into that. And if you don't know Bobby Christine, I think you probably should, because Bobby Christine is fucking awesome. But on top of that, Bobby Christine has been making an effort to increase and open up her doors of her Discord server that is called the Lobby Pristine, which I think is also a fantastic name.
It's incredible naming.
Yeah, and recently, just kind of over time, a lot of content creators have put they've closed down their servers and moved into Bobby Christine's Lobby Pristine.
Yeah, do the whole title every time if it's easier.
Yeah. So if you don't know the MTG Filthy Casuals, or the Filthy MTG Casuals, Donnie and Jen, there's too many names to go over. They've recently added a bunch of new people: Katie Karlov, Anna the Phyrexian Fangirl, Fernando, or if you know them by Bear, Benji the Brewer, Lenny and Bird from Coast to Coast Commander, which I'm probably going to talk about a game with them recently. Like, so many people have joined, so I heavily encourage you to seek either any one of these people out, and you'll be invited or get a link to the Lobby Pristine, and you kind of just check off whatever channels or roles you got. It's really busy, and I think that's intimidating, but it consolidates everything to one place. And there's just a lot of traffic, a lot of games popping off every day. I admittedly have not tapped into it, probably as much as you have, Quinn.
Oh yeah, you should, dude. It's a good crowd out there.
I should. I know. It's just, if I'm not playing Magic already, I'm usually playing video games or just doing other things, and sometimes I just see it pop off, and I'm like the GIF of like Les Mis of freaking, oh god, Russell Crowe like staring out the window at people. But yeah, busy place. There's probably even gonna be more and more people added to it, but like, yeah, it's popping off right now. It's great to see that, and it kind of addresses an issue that even I have as someone in like over a dozen like different Discords, is that it manages to consolidate everything into one page that kind of just makes it easier for you to kind of see what you want to kind of get involved in.
Yeah, a bunch of really cool people have made this their home base, so you can just like hang out in the lobby pristine and hang out with all of them by association. That seems pretty good to me, and I'm having fun out there.
What do you got on your end?
Lenny at a Johnny's Gay Pride Mate did a banger of a piece on light pause and how to add some variance to that experience. Basically, you make some like packages of auras that you can randomly select and then add that to your deck and then find out what exactly you're playing when you're casting your spells in game. And I think that sort of experience, similar to what I have with my Cedrus deck, is a great way to ensure that despite having like a tutor in the zone, you still can have a varied, interesting experience.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I remember, at least the first concept to me personally, was the backgrounds from Commander Legends Baldur's Gate, where you choose one central commander and then you create packages for the backgrounds of like whatever the other color combinations are.
Oh, yep. Shout out to the homies with the Abdel Adrian in the background stacks.
Yeah, and but Lenny choosing a commander that is so highly consistent and obviously very strong, especially for mono white, and being like, here's a way for you to add enough diversity in your games, not just for yourself, but for other people, of creating like variable packages that appeals to like slightly different pivotal playstyles. That I just think is just really cool. And he also said the other night when I was playing over on Coast to Coast Commander, was he's actually intending to build this physically. And I think he has, what was it, like 12 packages or like 10 packages or something like kind of ridiculous like that.
Yeah, something like that.
So we're like, oh, that's going to be like, I don't know, like, probably bordering on like over 150 to 200 cards after everything's like accounted for. But I thought that was just such a cool thing. Also,
it's an epic undertaking.
Also that same night, because obviously the conversation of like, will we eventually be having guests on here? And I definitely think once we kind of hit our strive, we'll definitely be open to that. But his thing, more than anything, of actually showing up on the podcast was being shouted out every episode. And I'm pretty sure we actually have done that so far. But
he
also
was in the show notes before we even heard about this goal, so this is not my fault.
Yeah, no, this is just naturally happening. So so far, I'm pretty sure, Lenny, you are 5 for 5 on each episode so far. So that's hilarious. But also, while we're kind of minorly on that subject, the other day, for all the shit talking we do, the Benoit is also kind of in that same boat right now. And he was saying the other day on Twitter, he's like, so, hey, you guys mentioned me a few times. I think you're going to start paying me royalties. And I turned around and said, well, actually, I think you should be paying us because we keep talking about you and your good word.
All of our friends should stop being such innovative deck builders with sparkling personalities, and maybe we wouldn't have to talk about them so often.
Yeah, which clearly that's not going to be stopping anytime soon.
Nope.
No.
All right, what else you got for us?
So I did a bit of a reread on a couple articles just because they circumstantially popped by my feed, and then also read a couple new ones from these people. So Cal MTG on Twitter, who used to be part of Playing with Power and is currently part of the Harold's Horn podcast. Go check them out. They've already had a couple episodes out. It's already great. I went back to his ode to Forgetful Fish article, which is talking about Dan. And I will not be talking about Killer Queen a whole lot because nothing's happened this week. But again, one of those things of just going back and just realizing that Magic is really flexible when it comes to how we can play Magic. Not just playing Commander, not just playing competitive formats or constructed formats. Like, there's a lot of tools in the toolbox, and we should probably use it to try to explore options of like what kind of experiences we're bringing to the table, to not just to ourselves but to other people. So, for me at the moment, and probably for a while, is going to be Killer Queen. Dan's just kind of one of those things where people are like, you know what, we'll just jam it and see what happens. And it's kind of like, it's kicked off in a big way. Pretty sure Dan is more than a few dollars a pop, which is hilarious.
Yeah, some things have happened to the prices of that forgetful fish.
I reread Kristen Emily's article on assembling haymakers in Commander rather than just playing your big bomb haymaker, just because of how many resources you have to commit to the one thing when you can commit resources over time to many small pieces. And that she also recently
That was a good piece. I read that one too.
I was looking at that recently when I was fiddling with Audric Bloodcurse, so might kind of go back to that in a second. And then, or when we go over games stuff. And then I read her recent article of her Commander 2024 wish list, about like what she hopes to see in, Commander design, this upcoming year, as well as like product and maybe like community based like stuff. I usually just I know some people try to, always have like issues with, the people who are part of the rules committee or the CAG. And, I think it's like, obviously sometimes they can say maybe what can be considered like inflammatory stuff, just cause they're so passionate about the thing that they're talking about. But I usually just find that it's just really easy to agree with their stances, just cause maybe it's a little unreasonable. But they're usually asking more for like more transparency, lower quote unquote lower powered play and like more general like fairness and consideration of your deck building intent, more than anything else. And yeah, I don't know, just that was a good read. Always a good read. I love reading Kristen's articles. And one, or I guess a couple other things while we're kind of just going into it. Normally this wouldn't be something I would like bring up, but it is pretty interesting to see, is that WotC recently, WotC's been under fire recently. They had the huge layoffs, and they recently had a kind of a bit of an with a recent Ravnica remastered advertisement that went out, because people were realizing that the advertisement that was showing Shocklands had kind of the weird AI artifacting that comes up when people are using Photoshop's new AI feature. So once again, WotC's kind of coming under fire for that. Normally I don't try to focus on that, but I think that's something that people are might want to be careful about, is that while it's easy to go on Twitter or just social media in general and shout, shout obscenities and tweet at them. And it's like, first of all, that is just a team of people who are just tweeting things. They probably don't even realize what's going on. They're like, hey, tweet this for us, But also, like, it's the fact that what it came down to is that the commission artists did that. And for the most part, they went on record saying that, like, the artist did make the artwork. It's just that the minor, like, AI stuff was obviously done also by the person. So, going to be interesting to see how that turns out for WotC over time, considering that they've doubled down on their stance that they're like, yeah, we're not going to be using AI art for our products, and yet it's come up several times. So I don't know, that'll be interesting to see, and hopefully it doesn't pop up too often, but it's not looking good.
Yeah, I don't really have a take on that one.
I just know a lot of people, myself included, really like Magic artists. I'm obviously more of like, I do appreciate digital artwork a little bit more than traditional, despite the fact that, like, traditional is in itself, like, really difficult. Like, having actual carvings as part of, like, Magic artwork, for, like, some of the sagas back in Call Time, was pretty great. But, I don't know. We'll see what's going to happen in the future. And then last thing before we go on to what the heck has been going on with us and our New Year's resolutions for Magic. MTG Goldfish put out a recent podcast episode talking about cards that may or may not be considered casual for Commander. I'll just want to preface the conversation that obviously casual and competitive Commander is like a majorly defined, like a broad spectrum of like how to encounter and like engage with the formats. And it's ultimately a state of mind, and it comes down to like what you put in your deck on like the deck building level more so than any individual cards. But they said that like, yeah, Mana Crypt is I think the general consensus, like, it was like kind of a 50-50 split, because like obviously Sol Ring is so ubiquitous with Commander, and most people play it more often than not. Mm-hmm. They were like, you know, is Mana Crypt casual or not? And what I say is, it depends on what else you are playing Mana Crypt with, and that kind of goes with like any card, in my opinion.
Yeah, always. Goodness. Yeah, always. Donnie's always saying intent matters, and it's pretty much that there. You can have a Mana Crypt, and if you're casting your Toxrill the Corrosive with that, you probably should maybe consider the arenas in which you're doing that kind of thing.
Are you talking from personal experience?
No, I mean, I guess a little bit. I built that deck initially with 0 ramp because my commander was Toxrill the Corrosive, and I did not want it to be possible to turbo out the slug. Eventually we added, I think, 4 total ramp spells, but ultimately there's not a lot of ramp in that deck because I don't want to be able to cast Toxrill very quickly. The thing that you, like, if you're using your Mana Crypt to cast, like, original Ramses Overdark, like, go for it. I'm happy for you that you even put that in the command zone. Like, it's that kind of thing.
Yeah. It's, yeah. Like, I think one of the people on MTG Goldfish raised the point where it's like, obviously, if Mana Crypt was not like a $200 card, and if we're looking at it from a pure like accessibility standpoint, you know, no one's going to be running Mana Crypt. But if someone had a Mana Crypt, they're probably going to be running it in like one deck, and it might be like either the most trash commander in the trash deck, you know, or like the most like optimized deck that they have. So I just kind of look at that. I kind of just look at that as a slippery slope. And I know there's a lot of factors to consider into it. And I'm like, the way I look at it, I'm like, if everyone has Sol Ring, which obviously can be an issue for some people, and some people are like on that hill to die on, where they're like, what if you don't run Sol Ring? And I'm like, okay, I see what you mean. Hear me out. I do like it sometimes, you know? And yeah, it's just, you know, would Mana Crypt end up being that additional +1 automatic include? I don't know. Should it be? Definitely not. I just think that, like most things, it's just context sensitive. But also, if you're flipping coins and losing those flips, you are definitely feeling the pain of playing Mana Crypt. So, you know, that's up in the air. But just something to think about, something that did come up, something that was stirring the pot a bit, because as usual, like, we're in the new year, people are already banging their pots of, like, don't play this magic card. And I think some people were just like, how about you just play with people who also agree to not play that magic card and, like, your game experiences, or just ultimately have the stance of, you don't like the card, don't play the card. You know?
Yeah, I truly cannot overstate the importance of curating your gameplay experience by only forming pods with people who you, like, can come to some sort of agreement on that kind of thing with. If there are people you simply do not vibe with, gamers, try to not force yourself in those situations. Maybe
also go to the lobby. Also go to the lobby pristine, and then you can find people who are like that. Easy.
Oh yeah, that's true.
Problem solved. Obviously, I understand that's not something that's an easy fix for everyone. But, you know, just something to think about. If you don't like Mana Crypt, if you don't like the One Ring, don't play it. And if you can't, but mostly in my case, I'm like, I think even if I had one, I would not know what to put it in, even if I had, like, those types of cards.
Yeah. I tweet every quarter about how I don't want to see Dockside Extortionist in games that we play. And so far, people are like, yeah, no, I know you tweet every quarter about dockside extortionists, so I'm not going to play that against
we'll
you.
keep banging the trash bin lid of like, nope, don't want it, get rid of it.
Yeah, you can just curate your experience.
Or ask politely, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But that's it for at least news as far as I'm aware, or at least content that I have been consuming recently. It's only been a couple of weeks, brand new year started. We'll see what's coming down the pipeline for a bunch of people. Let us talk about our personal New Year's MTG resolutions, because that was just something we talked about last episode. Things that we'd like to change, do, hope to see. I don't know, some things that are, obviously controllable to us in some way, shape, or form. So which is why I will first say, you go ahead, because I just talked my head off for like what felt like a half hour. What are you hoping to do this new year?
All right, so my New Year's resolutions: worst fears, dance with calamity, thunderous debut.
Okay, elaborate, please.
This is a joke on the word resolution. I would like to resolve these spells.
Okay, so worst fears I'm very familiar with, but go through these anyway.
All right, so Dance with Calamity has you exile cards from the top of your library one at a time, and you get to cast any number of those if the mana value of the spells that you exiled is 13 or less. If you go over, then you get nothing. You basically get to play Blackjack, and it's a 7-mana sorcery, I think. So I want to give that a shot. I think I bought a couple of copies and haven't gotten it.
It is 8 mana.
8 mana? Goodness. All right, well, I guess you do get a lot out of it. But yeah, it's an 8-mana sorcery that I want to cast. Like I was saying, worst fears, fucking... It's exactly what it says on the turn.
exile worst fears, take control of someone's turn.
I think that is extremely nefarious wizard shit, and sometimes when I'm playing a control mage, I like to have a spell like that, and I feel like getting you into that position where I'm playing like my fairies deck or something, where I've got a board state that's like all right, but you have a board state that I could really turn good against you, and I just cast worst fears and I reach my inky tendrils and corrupt your mind and ruin it. It's so satisfying.
Yeah, one of my buddies in my original play group, my buddy Chris, who I was talking about last episode just before Christmas. One of the famous things he's done the last over a decade we've been playing Magic with this guy. He loves taking control of people using the artifact version of that effect.
Mindslaver.
Mindslaver. And he loves recurring Mindslaver to do it again.
Yeah, see, I'm trying not to play Mindslaver because I don't want to have the option to recur it. I just want my big sorcery. We're going to do this wizard shit precisely one time, and then I will end the game like that.
Yeah, so, awesome. And yeah, Thunderous Debut, that's a card a random person at my local game store gave me.
Yeah, this is some new shit from Wilds of Eldraine. It's an 8-mana sorcery for 6 green. It's got Bargain, and you can look at the top 20 cards of your library. You may reveal up to 2 creature cards from among them. And if the spell was bargained, you put the revealed cards onto the battlefield. Otherwise, put the cards into your hand and then shuffle. I don't do a whole lot of green mana casting, so I think this is in the list here, actually. We're going to try and play more mono green or something to find out what that portion of the color pie has.
Yeah.
And see what's going on there. And Thunder's Debut is just like a big green spell, it looks like. So I want to dip my toes in there and see what's up.
Yeah, mono green has been one of my specialties for a long time, before shifting red colors more than anything. But yeah, mono green's got a lot of fun stuff. A lot of you can play your Goreclaw and stuff like that. 8 mana, obviously super easy to hit, no big deal.
Yeah, that's like 5 maybe in other colors, I feel like.
Yeah, and bargaining, like sacrificing an artifact, enchantment, or token. Again, we are in the treasure meta, so like even in green, you're arbitrarily like making treasures. You know what? Make an old Gnawbone deck. There you go. Problem solved.
I think that card is aesthetically abhorrent, and I will not be playing Old Gnawbone.
Okay, well, I'll try to sell you on some other stuff some other time. But in the meantime, yeah, Thunderous Debut. What a green ass Magic card.
Yeah, that shit is green as fuck. Other things that I'm trying to do is maybe play more silence effects, more of these things that I call the big shush. Sometimes you just need a giant hush to fall over the table so that you can go to combat, and those pesky blue mages with their etherizes or any of that other bullshit, just, it's not fucking happening. I'm turning all of that off. My turn is my turn, mind your business. And so I'm going to play more of that, I think. There's a Flame Scroll Celebrant, and then the other half of the card is Revel in Silence from Strixhaven.
Yes, yeah, Revel in Silence, yeah.
Thinking about playing that in the War Doctor, because that deck really wants to not be interrupted. And
you don't say.
I put a giant cannon in the command zone, so people really want to interrupt me.
What? I don't know what you're talking about. I've never done that to you ever.
Yeah.
Not once. Never.
It's a problem. So if they're going to do that, I need them to do it at least at sorcery speed. So we're going to do that. Another thing that I'm looking at is 2 mana instant speed kill spells with bling printings. You know, I'm talking Infernal Grasps. I'm talking...
freaking Game Day promo Power Word Kill was like the immediate first thing.
That one. Yes, exactly. So just like that genre of card, the Poison the Cup, the Foretell one from Kaldheim. Listen, I know it says 3 in the top right-hand corner, but you foretell that and you only ever cast it for 2.
Yeah.
That's a 2 mana instant speed kill spell with bling printing to me. And I want to play more of these effects because they give them that bling printing, so obviously they expect them to perform well in formats where gamers like bling. So I want to check their work. I want to see what's good.
Yeah, if there's definitely like a lot of printings of spells and effects that like, I don't know, like I love me a good power word kill, you know, like it's hilarious that it doesn't kill angels, demons, or dragons, but like
you know, but how like, it works in the game or whatever.
Yeah, sure. And then like, you know, it's the it's kind of like the Doomblade argument. But like also just actually having access to like a decent, just straight up like kill spell, goes a long way. And like a lot of different variations you can get your hands on. And honestly, like the recent ones that they have been printing at 2 mana, unsurprisingly, really good, really effective, and now more unconditional than ever in terms of what you can kill. Like the fact that with like Infernal Grasp, you can just like, I just kill something and I lose life for it? Whatever, I don't care.
Like,
Easy.
Yeah, I'll shock myself for my nefarious deeds if it means that your bomb is dead.
Yeah, it seems like a pretty good investment nowadays. The only life that matters is your last one, as usual.
Yeah, earlier in this list I mentioned mono green. Yeah, I want to try and build and play a mono green deck and perhaps learn to love the leaf. I haven't traditionally been particularly interested in green mana. I'm really more of a Rakdos mage at heart, and a lot of people like green, so there's got to be something cool going on over there. Like, that many mages can't be completely incorrect.
I mean,
that's statistically improbable.
The way to look at it, the way I look at that is that like people love green as much as people love blue, in that they can be highly contentious of the things that they can do in Magic, but also like in Commander. Like we talk about like mana ramp and card advantage, and ways to interact with the game. Obviously, like any deck that you make, you want to be able to do those types of things on some level. But like green is like, okay, I'm gonna put lands into play, and then mass land destruction is like a big social no-no. And then blue's like, I'm gonna draw a bunch of cards, even though it's like not the color, I think statistically, that has like the best forms of card draw in like Commander. But they also like counterspell stuff on the stack. So like you who cares about blowing something up when it's in play? Let's make sure that doesn't even happen. Mm-hmm. And like green, like, I don't know, green has sometimes some of the best spells that I've seen printed, period. Like heroic intervention has always been that one card where I'm like, that is a fucking green ass magic card that is like ridiculous for its cost. The fact that it gives stuff hexproof and indestructible until end of turn for 2 mana, instant speed, like that is hyper pushed. And those are kind of those types of cards that really kind of give green a good and bad name. Like I mentioned Old Gnawbone earlier, another card that like people are like, well, why does green get treasures? And then we went to New Capenna, and then people were like, why does green get treasures? And
I still think that that's weird to me in a color that's traditionally about like not artifacts and enchantments, or like just enchantments at the minimum. They're out here with like, yeah, these things all make treasure, and I get that the connecting like through line is mana generation, and green is like huge into that, but I feel like the flavor of it being a treasure token is like aesthetically not it for me.
Yeah, it's not great. I feel as
that's
if
the hill that I will die on.
Let's talk about a hypothetical alternate universe where treasures weren't actually printed as they were, or like maybe they entered tapped, or maybe they didn't even make them at all and made them like slightly worse. I don't know. But like, I understand that probably from a lore standpoint that Old Gnawbone is greedy. And we're talking about chromatic dragons in D&D, so they always tend to be like evil and nasty and conniving and all this other stuff. But I'm pretty sure Old Gnawbone in lore was like notoriously a hoarder. So you could look at that as like the flavor justification. But in general, if we're looking at like what the color pie does, and what green should be able to do, and why making treasures is obvious. Like in a set like New Capenna, I can understand, because like we're in the gangster city of like where money's trading hands all the time. But like in D&D, it was just like, okay, look, like you're giving your whole board the ability to make X treasures. Like that's ridiculous. It's too much. But yeah,
I'd be cool if it was like floating mana that didn't leave as steps and phases.
Yeah, like, you know, like, they've dabbled in that. That would seem reasonable.
Yeah, I don't know. It feels like the same thing but different.
I don't know. You're gonna figure what you do like about green, I think, and just bring your own flavor to it. And like, you know, there's obviously some new cards that like push the boundary of like what is acceptable in green's part of the color wheel. But there's also old cards that you're just like, well, this is a red card, or this is a black card. What is this doing here? And Magic was obviously like the Wild West when it came to design, like over 20 years ago. So, you know, pick your poison, you'll figure it out. It'll be a no-brainer.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Bonus, maybe we do a little more spell theft. I really like just like reach into my opponent's library and see what's good on the top, like 2 or 3 cards, and then exile it and cast it. So maybe I just put like 1 or 2 of those in every deck. Is just like, this is my card advantage. Occasionally it comes from your library.
Casual Atali, no big deal.
I have literally never once taken an Atali out of a deck because of like a webcam magic, and I don't intend to start now. We're just going to keep playing Atalis. She's good in red, and there's a reason that they print her in damn near every precon.
Yeah. Not for the same reasons they keep printing Zatalpa in like every precon.
No, it's kind of the same reasons. You get enough attacks in with an Atali, you've got an overwhelming value store of board state, and Zatalpa sort of just like, you land that and it doesn't die, and you were probably winning that game.
Yeah. Yeah, Atali, top deck stuff of like other people, pretty fun strategy if not done like, I don't know, like it's a strategy. It's there. I know a few people will play it. I've indulged in it a couple times, and yeah, it's fun. It's fun just casting other people's spells sometimes in like weird or just ways that you're like, not what I intended, but it's given me gas, so let's just get to it.
Yeah, I love to like be in the blue-black deck and cast somebody else's Cultivate. Like, I'm never getting ramp like that. So I'll steal it from you.
There you go.
All right, tell me about your resies. What you got for me?
All right. First things first, and I've already started making a bit of leeway into this. I'm going to be making an effort to try to trim down my overall collection again. I did kind of a big purge of a bunch of bulk a while ago, and it might have bitten me in the butt for a couple things, but no big deal. We got rid of it. But I'm going to try to do it again, and I'm also going to try to trim down decks, even though I just made a big 253 post long tweet about all of the decks that I have right now, and then I realized that I actually still had 50 decks, despite the fact that I thought I actually went down to 49. And then, just recently, and I'll be talking about it later, I did just make another deck, so I'm back up to 51. So, I've got to try to keep it under control.
Whoops.
And so, to kind of start doing that, I started sorting my cards again, and just what I'm doing is I'm sorting it by, since it was the multicolor stuff, I sorted it by, what color is it? What's the color combination? I'm putting 4s and 5s together. And I'm keeping all 3 color stuff together, and I'm keeping all 2 color stuff together. And then in those subsections, I got them divided by what card type they are. So, creatures, instant, sorcery, blah, blah, blah. And then on top of that, after I started sorting them, I started using the Dragon Shield app to keep track of the actual cards that I own. And what they do is they got a card reader using your camera. And, sure, maybe you have to, put in, what set it's actually from. But if I'm just looking at how many copies of X card do I have, it's doing it for me. So, I got all the multicolor stuff done. No, sorry, I got all the 2-color stuff done. And then I realized, as I was going through it, I'm like, this says it's nearly, $1,000 in 2-color stuff. And we're talking about, a boatload of bulk that's probably worth, 10 cents or less on, TCG Player or whatever. But I'm like, okay, let's scroll through. What is where are the heavy hitters? And sure enough, I've just been sitting on a bunch of rando ass foils that are worth over $10 or whatever. One of them off the top of my head was I think it was the main set, Boros Huatli. And it makes a dinosaur and you gain life equal to I think the greatest power of a creature you have in play or whatever. Mm-hmm. I'm like, I don't know why I bought this, but I'm just here to get rid of it. So tied into that is I took all those big expensive cards and I went down to my LGS and I traded them in for trading credit with a store. And just from this initial trip down to the store, I got nearly $100 for it. So I'm going to be using that to try to cut down on actual spending. I did a big purchase just for Christmas and Boxing Day, and now I'm all right, let's try to cut back on that. And kind of to help with that, I recently grabbed a Croc Clan Ironworks with the trade-in value. Ooh. So did not feel guilty, felt great and fantastic actually. So I'm hoping once I start organizing colorless and monocolor stuff, that I find even more stuff, and then I just head right back down, do it again. And then speaking of tracking and spreadsheets and stuff, I finally made, and I'm committing to my own Commander game spreadsheet on Excel on my Google Drive. And the reason I'm doing that, obviously you're part of the inspiration.
Thank you.
And Andy Flowery, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, shout out to Andy Flowery. He's why I'm tracking.
Yeah. And so I was like, all right, gotta put in the did you cook option as one of the things. And I'm keeping win-loss ratios. And I've actually had, just due to a minor misunderstanding, but we kind of just stuck with it. I actually had my first draw in a very long time. But that was the other reason, is that obviously now that we're doing sections of what games have we had and what are we doing and what decks are we in, I kind of realized that I just sometimes completely forget who I played with, just because either it all like collides together, or I'm so in the zone of just playing Magic. I sometimes like I know people who were there. I don't know the exact sometimes combinations of like who I was playing with. So I'm keeping track of who I'm playing with, what they're playing with, what I'm playing with, and as part of the what am I playing with, the lovely drop down menus, with currently 52 options. I should probably update that to include the new one that I just built. Has all my commanders that I currently have on my shelf on it. And on top of that, and as they tie in to the giant 50 some odd tweet thread that I made about all the commander decks that I have color coded them according to what is my feeling about that particular deck. Just like based off the tweet thread where I'm like, okay, real talk here. What do I feel about this deck? What are the chances of this actually being broken apart or being reintegrated somewhere else? And so the thing that I'm looking to do, at least for like the first maybe 2 or 3 months, is that I'm going to see like, okay, I got to give these decks a genuine shot, which means I got to play the decks that I've highlighted in orange and yellow as the ones that I have a low or unknown opinion on because I haven't played it in a while, or I just know that I'm just not like really attached to it. Step up above that is light green for decks that I'm like, these are pretty good. Feelings could change, but in general, they're just like good solid decks. Solid green for like, all right, this is like, if we're talking about like like, you know, those like, ratings, YouTube review things where people are like, all right, this is like S tier, this is A tier, blah, blah, blah. Like, these are like A tier decks. Like, I love these things. They've been around for a long time. Probably going to keep them, but like, they are not like my quote unquote like favorite decks. And that's where the blue decks are, where like Audric is very appropriately in that category and stuff. I'm like, these are the decks I've highly invested in. These are the decks I've constantly fiddled with. And my hope is, as the more games I've have going throughout the year, I see more of the orange and yellow and actually properly, and then in my notes category, be like, I don't have much of a relationship with this. Maybe I'll finally take it apart, but I just need to see more of that rather than the borderline solid blue categories I've had with my first 10 games this year so far. So, going to be interesting to see how I actually utilize this, and I might actually be finally cutting a few decks down. So all of this is kind of in that same category of like, how do I feel about it? How am I going to trim it down? And yeah, I'm trying to be a little, if anything, trying to use this as a stepping point to be more organized in my real life in some way, shape, or form. So yeah, going to be interesting to see how this all turns out. I'm actually really excited to continue using the spreadsheet. And so far, despite the... Okay, I look at the column of like, what decks did I play? Most of it are like the blue decks. And then I look at my loss ratio, and I have 1 win, 1 tie, and 8 losses so far. And I don't care about that part. I just want to know like what's going on. But who knows? I might even just get rid of that column completely.
I've actually been thinking about that. I don't know how useful it is to track your win-loss ratio in like the casual metagames, because there's entirely too much variance, and I just don't know how much real information you're getting for that. A far more useful statistic is, did I cook? Did my deck do what I built it to do? And if that's the case, then like I think that's what we all sit down to make like happen.
Like, if I'm already looking at the did I cook category, and obviously that's where I tend to like actually, rather than having a drop down menu or anything, I actually would rather personalize it, just because it's so much more fun that way. And so far, the general consensus, like, the ratio seems to be most, like, 50% yes or holy fuck, absolutely yes. The rest have either been, like, I've sorta cooked, to one where I'm like, absolutely, yeah, nothing happened. It just, like, nothing happened. And And then, of course, the general consensus of, like, were the games fun? Like, did I cook? Yes. Were the games fun? More often than not so far, it's been yes, with a couple of just due to, like, whatever the heck was happening, like, in that pod. Mm-hmm. I think it's just good to... We're talking about a very subjective format with some, like, objective truths about, like, magic cards and play patterns and stuff. And trying to keep track of the technical stuff more so than the emotional stuff. Like, I'd rather just choose the emotional stuff because I'm just that type of person anyway. Like, what is the emotional response? And so far, I think I'm doing that. And yeah, who knows? I might probably cut that win-loss row. But, like, so far, like, I don't necessarily see the harm in it. And just, like, keeping personal track of that. Everything else is emotionally satisfying to see than whatever damage could be done from just seeing my loss ratio.
Good, as long as it stays fun for you. I think that's important, because, like, the last thing that you want to do is make tracking your games turn playing those games into a chore. Like, we don't want that for you. So, whatever it takes to, like, keep the whole thing fun.
Yeah, like, again, like, I'm only 10 games in over the last couple of weeks. So far, so good. Everything that I'm seeing here, all the information I'm able to remember, and especially, like, pod compositions, people's commanders, like, taking into consideration, because I'm just going to totally date when we're recording this, I just got out of a stream game with Amara, and we... the Goddess of Blunder, and we just had a plane chase game where we've only plane chased 4 planes. So not a lot of action there. We were trying our hardest. We couldn't get out of there. But I'm also like, hey, wait a minute. I played Magnus from the Warhammer 40k Ruinous Powers deck. I'm like, wait, I played Magnus twice within the last couple weeks. Why is that? And the reason being is that the person who was playing the Magnus deck tonight got gifted the Magnus deck by Bert, aka the pod MTG of Coast to Coast Commander. It's his gift Magnus deck, probably the same or variant one that he played when I played over on Coast to Coast Commander. So
that's so funny.
Yeah, it was. So I'm like, wait, what? He's like, yeah, I got it from Bert. I'm like, oh no. And then I remembered what happened on that night. And then I saw what happened tonight. I was like, oh man, Bert's cooking. What the fuck is this shit? So yeah, like, being able to recall the individuals and, like, start recognizing maybe patterns of, like, commanders that people are playing. I've just been so poor at that the last few years. And obviously, like, part of it is, like, maybe the scale or who I've been playing with has, like, changed. But people take decks apart. And sometimes it's like, hey, do you remember that deck? No, I don't. Why not? Well, for whatever reason, like, last year, I remember you playing something, but that part didn't click. And now I can be like, hold on, look at spreadsheet. Oh yeah, you played that, you know? Mm-hmm. So it's good. It's good to bring back some memories. I like leaving notes for myself of, like, what the fuck happened.
Yeah, it's fun to look back on the sheet, especially the ones where you have those notes that are like an explanation of things that went on in the game, and just, like, then you get to sort of replay a bit of that game in your head and enjoy that experience again. Like, that's one of the underrated nice things about tracking stats, I think.
Yeah, and then the other thing, which maybe we can use that as a terrible transition to the next part here, is, you know, the decks we've brewed or thinking about, or the decks we've taken apart, or the games we've had the last couple weeks, which makes that part of the spreadsheet a lot better for recalling games that I've had recently. Mm-hmm. So what's been up with you lately? It seems you've had a few games going on.
Yeah, so I built the 15th Doctor that we talked about last episode. I was completely wrong about the play pattern that we described, or that I described on the podcast. We ended up building just, like, a ramp deck, basically, and also a Voltron deck. which is, speaking of 15th Doctor, passes the Hero's Blade vibe check, 5 sure, 2 mana artifact, so I can put that into his hand with his trigger, and he's legendary auto-equips. I want to be attacking anyway because he's got an attack trigger, so it's all good for that, and absolutely we put that in that deck. Guess this is the part where I read the 15th Doctor, though, huh?
Yeah, it's a bit of a brand new card, so people might not know what's going on here.
Alright, well, he's a 3/3 legendary creature Time Lord Doctor for 2 red-blue, and whenever he enters the battlefield or attacks, mill 3 cards. You may put an artifact card with mana value 2 or 3 from among them into your hand, and the first non-artifact spell you cast each turn has Improvise. I completely slept on that line the first time around.
Oh, I'm sure you did.
Yeah, that's actually what you need to be building around, at least for how I wanted to experience this deck. So I have some heckin' chonky sorceries, stuff like Dance with Calamity, like we talked about earlier. We don't have Worst Fears in the deck, but I do have Mnemonic Deluge, and I have a couple of other chonky sorceries that I can do absolute nefarious work with. So the plan is to ramp and play artifact creatures so that I can tap them and not pay retail for my 7, 8, 9 mana sorceries. And then I have my robots aggro sub-theme, because the Doctor Who villains cards are pretty strong. We like Davros Dalek Creator, we especially like Missy. All of that is good. So, yeah, that's what I've been enjoying with the 15th Doctor. I played a few games with it. The first couple of them really, I guess we didn't have the right ratios of the cards that we needed to see correct yet. So we really struggled to find our feet and didn't do a whole lot. Or like we would get interacted with once and just not ever be able to recover. And I think now with the changes that we've made to the deck, the experience is better, the deck is more resilient, we're starting to find our stride and do more of the things that we built the deck to do. So it's been actually satisfying to have, like, build a deck and then struggled with it for a bit and then, like, find where it wants to be and still, like, work towards getting that, like, that blade sharper. And I think we're almost there. I think we're getting there with that one.
Yeah, Improvise is such a strong mechanic to tie to that color combination on a commander, where you're like, okay, cool. So the 2 and 3 mana artifacts that I'm finding are now mana rocks.
Yeah, I've got like Howling Mine in there, and then of course all of my swords, so I can tap Howling Mine and turn that off, and then tap all of my equipment, and that's basically free mana, and all of that is incredibly strong, and Howling Mine only works when it's untapped, so I can just I can make that one-sided by turning it off with the Doctor. That's pretty strong.
Yeah, that's actually pretty metal, literally and figuratively. Yeah, very, like, when I knew they were doing a new Doctor, and to me, like, from my perspective, if we're talking about Magic time, when I think of an outsider who is, like, kind of, like, keeping track of media, like, modern media coming out, I was like, oh, cool, new Doctor. Wait, wasn't there another new one, like, okay, like a year ago? No, it was like 3? Okay, cool.
Yeah, time.
Wait, they brought David Tennant back. Hold on, what is happening here? And then there's the bi-generation thing, and they're like, well, wait, why aren't they in the set? And then they did the Secret Lair, and I was like, okay, cool. I still don't know how to... I still have no idea what... I don't know. Like, I'll always be from the outside looking in when it comes to that, like, show and that series. But pretty cool to see that they immediately were like, okay, cool, here's a card. I'm like, okay, thank God. Like, we're going to leave this guy out for real.
Yeah, they basically, like, right off the rip were like, hey, here's all of these decks. I noticed that there are some more Doctors. Don't worry, we've got something planned for that. And so everybody in the community was just like, oh, Secret Lair, got it. And then,
okay, cool.
Yeah, they dropped the Secret Lair.
Oh, geez, yeah. Speaking of Secret Lairs, I'll just quickly tangent to that, kind of back to the news thing, is that they did announce the change to how they were originally doing print to demand to doing hypotheticals of being like, oh, we'll print X many amounts of this Secret Lair, and see what happens. So don't be a scalper. That's
yep.
that's all I have to say on that. So hopefully, I'm pretty sure. I don't know. Sacred Layers. I've only ever bought one. I bought the Zendikar one with a buddy of mine, and I got the foil versions of like Zulapur Cutthroat and Avenger of Zendikar. And holy shit, the curling on that was so bad. I was like, damn, these are Pringles. I could eat these.
Yeah, that's pretty unfortunate. I do really like the art on a lot of the Secret Layers. So
they're fantastic, always. Yeah. Just get the regular one. Save yourself the trouble.
Yeah, tell me about a deck or a game. Yeah, it's your turn.
All right, cool. All right. Geez, do I just condense the Bludgeck one into one? Or, I don't know. How about this? So, the other weekend, big Commander day/night, because we showed up at like 3 and then kept playing till like basically 11, so it was a great time. There were 7 of us, and between like the pods of people that we were swapping in and out of and switching opponents and stuff, I got 6 games and some people got 7 games out like that night. So pretty great turnout. And one of those particular games, shout out to Enthrallment, aka Joel, poor bastard, I fucking sent him to the Shadow Realm immediately. I was playing Captain Ripley Vance for that particular game.
Mm-hmm.
And I did not win that game. But I didn't need to because of what I did. I saw an opportunity to dump my whole hand when I could probably have waited. But it was like it was my turn 4 and Joel's turn 3. He hadn't even got to his turn yet. And I'm like, all right, it is time to be Goku in Dragon Ball Z. And it's time to go Super Saiyan 3.
All right.
Right now. Like, we're just going 0 to 100, right? So I advance out. And then it goes my turn again. And I'm like, okay, play land. Do a ritual effect or whatever, and I gotta cast Mana Geyser. Mm-hmm. I get 10 mana. I'm like, cool. I will now proceed. Oh, I know why this was enabled. He played Oath of Druids, and I got out a what was that card called? It's a 5-mana goblin that's a 4/4 with menace, that when it enters, you're able to cast an instant sorcery with mana value 3 or less from your graveyard, and then it goes to exile. So you just basically give it a flashback. And I had a Temur Battle Rage in graveyard, so that's what really kickstarted this whole thing. So I'm like something made us discard it, like one card right away. I'm like, oh, that's a bummer. And then they're like, Oath of Druids. I'm like, cool, I'm gonna put this guy into play, and I'm gonna cast Temur Battle Rage targeting Captain Ripley Vance, and I have the power 4 greater with the goblins, so she gets double strike and trample. Cast Mana Geyser, spell 2. Cast a spell number 3, deal like piddly damage somewhere, and I'm like, no, wait, there's more. And then I proceeded to cast like more spells beyond the 3 spells I typically wanted to for Vance. Mm-hmm. Get her to 14 power. Go to combat, swing 14 double strike damage at Joel, sending him to the Silver Layer zone. And then I'm like, no, wait, hold on, I'm not done yet. And then with shoot, what's that? I freaking wrote this down and I should know, but like there was that 2-minute elemental that every time you cast a red spell, you put a +1 counter on it, and then you can
Runaway Steamkin.
Runaway Steamkin, yeah, I had Runaway Steamkin shenanigans going on. I'm like, no, wait, hold on, there's more, and I was able to cast Gravatic Punch twice. Mm-hmm. Which Gravatic Punch is 4 mana. Target creature control deals damage to any target, I think, or it's target opponent or whatever. I think it's target player.
Yeah, target player equal to its power.
And then it has
Jumpstart.
So I just
so you just punch someone and then
I punch someone for 28.
Hit it with the old 1-2 punch.
And I should have redirected the damage to someone else, but the problem, like the thing with that was that, like, all right, it's turn 4. I owned someone. I 28'd someone else from 40 to 18. No. What am I doing? 12. And then I had nothing. I had no gas. No way to get back in the game. Everyone was like chipping away at my board. They're like, "Okay, you've had your fun." And I'm like, "Oh, I've done what I've done. I know what I'm doing here."
Yeah, I feel like if you just like drop somebody like that, everybody looks around and they're witnesses to your crimes, and you have to die for them. Yeah. So you have to be able to come back from that, and if you can't, well, woe betide.
But just another kind of example of like that was the deck that was the commander that started the Uncommon Commander podcast, and I've always tuned that deck. And like, you know, I've made the Flip Urabrask. I made like every mono red deck that like focuses on like, oh, I have Bergie and all this other shit where you get like intense mana generation, damage potential, and at least with like Urabrask or whatever you get like combo potential. But this was like the one deck where I'm like, no, absolutely fuck it. I'm gonna make this one creature as big as I reasonably can within a single turn, make her pop off, and then swing out. And when she works, it's great. And there's been just a lot of other times where it's been pretty underwhelming. But every time I've done stuff with her, everyone has been always shocked and surprised with what she's capable of. So that was, at first Joel was like, man, what the fuck? And then later he's like, actually, no, that was kind of fucking sick. And I'm like, oh yeah, no.
Yeah, it sucks in the moment to be the person who gets deleted, but when you actually like look back on it, it's just like, well, damn, you really did like put it all into that one punch, and now I'm dead.
And considering that cool someone else on that table was a Slivers player who was not actually the threat because nothing was happening. It was pretty tragic. But it was like, I should have targeted one of the other two players for that instead. But just, you know, in the moment, it was just super fun to do that.
Yeah, sometimes you see red and you make decisions you wouldn't have otherwise.
Hey, look, we're red mages. You know what I'm talking about. Yeah. But yeah, good showing for Vance. That's why she's in the blue category on the spreadsheet. And just the notes I left was, did you cook? Holy fuck. Was it fun? Yes. Notes, dealing 28 commander damage and 28 direct damage to face is wild. So yeah, I popped the fuck off. It was kind of wild. It was crazy.
Hell yeah, dude. We love to hear it.
All right, back to you. What's up?
So the other things that I've been thinking about is Goro Goro and Satoru. That's a really cool card.
Very cool card, yeah.
Yeah, so it's been rattling around in my brain ever since like March of the Machine Aftermath, because I think that like one of those came in my pre-release pack. They had some commanders that you couldn't play like in the pre-release, but they were still going to put in the pre-release kit. So yeah, Goro Goro and Satoru was one of them. They're Grixis for a legendary creature, Goblin Human, and whenever one or more creatures you control that entered the battlefield this turn deal combat damage to a player, make a 5/5 Dragon Spear creature token with flying, and you can pay 1 and a red to have creatures you control gain haste until end of turn. So the thing that I thought about with them is that the creature that entered the battlefield this turn dealing combat damage is ninjas meet that requirement.
Yep, they do meet that requirement because they're already enter-tapped and attacking anyway.
Yeah, and they, like, by definition have to be unblocked because otherwise you can't ninjutsu them in. So, we put together just the fucking most spreadsheet-ass Grixis Ninjas deck. We were like, alright, we need 15 sources of unblockable, so let's slap these in here. Let's auto-add the package on Moxfield, that's my Grixis mana base that I like. Let's add the best ninjas in these colors. We'll add 2 pieces of Dragon Synergy, and then we're just like, this many slots left, and we're like, okay, I guess we'll be responsible then, eat the rest of our vegetables, hit the ramp card draw and removal. And then we got all of that in, slapped the deck together, immediately play tested it like 15 minutes after in a game, and it did exactly what we built it to do. We got our unblockable bodies down, we ninjutsu'd in Silent Blade Oni and guys like that.
That's awesome.
And just bonking people for a lot and then making dragons. And then the cool thing about the dragons is I can either send that like evasive 5/5 in to bonk
and
someone.
Then you can ninjutsu on that. Ooh,
yeah, or I can bounce the dragons to my hand and ninjutsu in more ninjas for more dragon triggers. Another cool thing that you can do is ninjutsu in response to an unblocked ninja being targeted. So you like brick the removal and you still get in your ninja for damage. They like think they're safe and you're just like, all right, well, I guess I can activate ninjutsu as many times as I need to or have mana for.
Yeah, that was such a weird thing to learn. I'm pretty sure I learned that recently, where you can just be like, nope, wait, nope, hold on. Actually, wait, I still have mana open. I'm going to do it again.
Yeah, Gavin on, I think, Good Morning Magic had a whole video about weird, cool things that you can do with ninjutsu. One of them being like playing with the first strike and double strike and like when the timings for those all happen and just like unblocked first strike attackers and being able to get your ninja in for that damage and then
for the damage on regular
and then in for regular damage because like
okay, so this is what you need to put Drana, Liberator of Malakir, in the deck, because she gives first strike and then gets +1 counters on your stuff afterward when they're dealing regular.
She does, but I bounce my guys in and out of the battlefield so much that giving them counters isn't really useful. The thing that we're doing to sort of like force multiply on that is playing Impact Tremors and Perforos.
You got Perforos?
Yeah. And Vela the Nightclad. So, shout out to the OG Ninjas Commander. Gives your guys Intimidate, and whenever a creature you control leaves the battlefield, your opponents lose 1 life. So I'm having my guys enter, I'm dealing 2 to you with Perforos, I'm bouncing my guys to my hand, I'm burning you for 1 with Vela, and they get evasion. We're getting in there. Thousand-Faced Shadow is one of the coolest ninjas, actually. That guy's a 1-drop flyer for a 1/1, and it's got the ninjutsu for, I think, like 2 blue or something like that, like the usual clone mana cost. And if you ninjutsu that guy in, you can make a token copy of another attacking creature. So a cool thing that you can do with that interaction and the like being able to activate ninjutsu as many times as you want is bounce that repeatedly to make a lot of token copies of a high quality ninja. One that I like to choose is Silver Fur Master, or as I like to call him, Master Splinter.
Master Splinter, yeah, that was what I immediately had in mind. I'm like, that's fucking Master Splinter.
It literally is, yeah. He's a rat ninja, he's a ninja and rogue lord, so he gives all your guys +1/+1, and if you can make copies of that, you are stacking up the damage that you can do by quite a bit. That's a really cool interaction that I've had fun with. A kind of a pain point with the deck, though, is finding the bodies with the right abilities when you need to have them. So I don't always have an unblockable guy when I have a ninja that I want to be swinging with. So I'm thinking about switching in some more like activated abilities that give things evasion, or just like static, like the whole team has this sort of evasion, and that kind of thing can, I think, help me get further in there. We have Higure the Stillwind, who gives a ninja unblockable, and we have Grazilax, Illithid Scholar, who, when a creature is blocked,
I love Grazilax,
yeah, you can bounce it to your hand, and then if I have a ninja that got blocked that way, I can ninjutsu it in somewhere else that was unblocked, because that's the way that works.
That's so janky and so weird, but it's so awesome.
Ninjutsu is actually really cool for people who like intricate interactions with the rules, so check that out if you're a rules nerd. One of the sources of like team-wide evasion that I was thinking about, though, was Rogue class, and we did ultimately end up finding a spot for that in the deck. And this one actually pulls like 2 duties. One is card advantage, and then the other is evasion. Whenever a creature you control deals combat damage to a player when you have Rogue class out, you exile the top card of that player's library. So it's kind of like exile mill for a bit while you have that out there. And then you can pay some more into it and give all of your creatures menace, and then you pay some more into it, and all of those cards that you've been exiling as you've been getting in there with your evasive guys, you can suddenly play those. And you can spend mana or mana of any color to cast it. So it becomes your second hand at a certain point. And I think the evasion and card advantage package that all of that adds is really exciting to test out. So we're going to play some more of that. It's also got me thinking some more about those class enchantments. I haven't spent a whole lot of time playing very many of those.
Yeah.
I played Sorcerer class and Rogue class, and that's like it. They're both extremely good. I need to pay more attention to them.
I find that regardless of the rarity, each of them tend to be surprisingly effective for their cost. I've played a lot of Warlock and Cleric class, where like Warlock class is one that you definitely want to get to the last level for it to be really effective, because the first two are kind of like middling, but it's the investment where it's like, oh, okay, wound reflection on end step for my turn. For the overall investment's pretty arduous. You gotta pay, I think, 7 mana to get it to level 3 after it's already at level 2. But having a 1 mana uncommon...
Yeah, it comes down so early, and you can play that wherever, basically.
Yeah.
And if you've got the mana, then yeah, you can force multiply all of your life lost that turn.
And a buddy of mine, Brian, who has been on the Uncommon Commander podcast before, and has recently come back from his duties as a father and has been like, hey boys, what's up? You want to play? And we're like, hell yeah. He is a big Bard class player, because that thing just gives a cost reduction of red and green to all legendary creatures that you cast when you get it up to level 2. So with a handful of like spells and cost reductions effects, like you can literally just start free casting like 3 or 4 drop legends. Just willy nilly. So he originally had it in like a Targ Nar Demon Spine Knoll or whatever. Demon Fang Knoll, yeah. He originally had it as that, and I think he eventually upgraded it to Grumgully. But like, you know, we're talking about like apples to peaches. It's still fucking Gruul Storm with fucking Bard class, and it's just fucking... It slaps, it pops off, it does the thing. I need to find a place for fighter class. I need a fighter class like spot, and I don't know if it fits in Bloodrick because, and I'll go to it in a bit. But I've actually trimmed the fat on that deck a bit. And I don't know. We can go into that. I don't know if that's like the next thing or if you're done,
that's the next thing. Tell me about your guy Bloodrick. Yeah. Yes, he's clearly weighing heavy on your mind.
Always, constantly, perpetually. Yeah, but like I can't remember the guy's name. I'm freaking Charlie Day in It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia when he's freaking at the board of like who's Pepe Sylvia, and he's got like this red string and the pins on the board like going all over the place, going fucking insane. Well, when I said on Gorogoro and Satoru is that I am sitting on a trio of cards in kind of like my recent purchases container, or just things that I've recently got. And I have mentioned that I did get a Gorogoro and Satoru recently. From a buddy of mine, from a trade that was like months in the making. We just, schedules weren't lining up, and I finally got one. I'm like, okay, if looking at the list of stuff on my shelf, if there was a deck that I did want to take apart, I did recently take apart a Be'lakor deck, and I'm probably thinking about taking apart my Cormella deck to finally put together this Gorogoro and Satoru deck, because it just seems super cool. Right behind that is Satoru Umezawa, which gives your creatures ninjutsu in hand. And then right in behind that is Hidetsugu and Kairi, where when they have flying, they're an ogre, demon, dragon, which is a metal as fuck creature type combination. 2 double blue and a black for 5/4 flyer. When they enter, you draw 3 and you put 2 from your hand back on top, so you brainstorm on ECB. And then when they die, you exile the top card of your library. Target opponent loses life equals to the mana value, and if it's an instant sorcery card, you may cast it without paying its mana cost. So I'm like, I'm gonna cook with that, and I don't know what it's gonna be. And I guess just to like talk about Gorgor and Satoru. I know Anthony on Twitter, I just don't have his name or handle on the top of my head. He's normally what I know is like an artist and he loves Pokemon. And then he's like, yo, I'm playing Gorgoro and Satoru CEDH. And I'm like,
yeah, I've seen that. I think that's fire. Listener Elf?
Yeah, I think it's Listener Elf, yeah. Which I'm like, oh, that's fucking sick. And he's been on that ball for like the last few weeks. So it seems like he's having a real good time with that, and that seems awesome.
Yeah, it seems like it's been doing well for him. It's really cool.
Yeah, and then the Seth Cross, also on Twitter, has built a ball lightning themed Gorgo and Satoru, because you swing out with your
basically replace your ball lightnings with dragons.
Yeah, so I was like, that is super fucking awesome. And the fact that I'm like, wow, that's validation for my Mr. Orfeo the Boulder deck, where it's also a ball lightning themed deck. So I was like, oh, that's awesome.
The children yearn for ball lightnings.
they yearn for violence and death, and that's ball lightning incarnate. All right. So Audric Bloodcursed. Well,
yeah. What's the Audric report?
Audric report this week. Based off my super fancy new spreadsheet, I have played 2, 3, 4, 5. Out of 10 games, I have played Audric 5 times. And this is taking into consideration the changes that I made recently, which, upon looking back at the primer that I made for it like a few weeks ago, completely out of date. I fucked it up so bad, I need to go rewrite the dang thing.
Oh, no.
I was like, wow, half those cards that I mentioned like in the primer like are not even close to being reconsidered right now. So, going back to the Kristen Emily article about assembling your engine rather than playing your haymaker, I was like, okay, I really need to sit down. I really need to look deep within my soul. And I need to like, what am I trying to do with the deck? And like, where do I want it to go? And like, do I want to tune it to a way that is like super duper good? Or like, or do I want it to be a little more consistent so that way I don't feel burnout when I play it? And sure enough, if we're talking about games like just before the end of the year that I had on Lexicon with you and Brandon, and I want to say, who was the fourth player? Can't recall off the top of my head. But I popped off that game. And I remember I could probably bring up the freaking clip of me just being like, okay, I do this, and then I do this, and then I do this, and you were like, you gotta stop. And I'm like, no, I'm not done yet. And then I kept going. So what I did was that, like, all right, I trimmed the fat, I cut down more higher cost stuff for just lower cost stuff. I added a couple more Lost Caverns of Ixalan cards. Like we mentioned Sunshot Militia, and like it's like that was kind of like a really cool indicator of like how I can move the deck forward. Mm-hmm. One of the things that I did was that I originally had Cavern Horde Dragon or Cavern Hellkite or whatever the hell it's called from the Lord of the Rings set. That was like that 9 mana dragon that is reduced by 1 for each like artifact or like a target opponent controls. Mm-hmm. So I was like, you know what? Like, it's big and it's scary and people like automatically target it, and yeah, it has 3 keywords, but like I'm not gonna get what I want out of it. So I trimmed that for Realm Scorcher Hellkite from Wilds of Eldraine.
Oh yeah, that looks good.
6 mana with Bargain. And I think it's like a 4/5 or something. And when it enters, if you bargained it, you add 4 mana of any combination. And then you can pay 1 in a red to deal 1 damage to like, I think it says any target, and I don't have it for reference because I've never actually used that ability yet, but that's actually like, it's one of those super sweet extra things where like, man, I could just start like killing stuff if I really want to. So I always thought that was like a sweet thing, for a standard set card. That is awesome. So I love that.
Yeah, I can stand any target.
And that was the thing that allowed me to have that incredibly huge board state on the stream. And then I also, because it also had I had flipped the artifact land that has Discover X on the
Brass's Tunnel Grinder had flipped into Tequilon, the Searing Rift, I think. And
Yeah.
at that point, you were getting free spells off of Discover, and then I was like, I'm immediately blowing that up.
And then I realized that I kind of cheated that night because I accidentally brought 2 things back when it should have been 1, and it was definitely going to be the Angel of the Ruins instead of the Touch of the Spirit Realm. But I didn't win that game anyways, and I don't think it really impacted anything too much. But great addition. And then kind of just based off the changes that I've been making and the things that I've been adding, the games in general have felt better and a little more smoother. Yeah, it's just been good to show the deck off. I had a fairly average game on Coast to Coast Commander with Lenny and Bert. And then I had that really nutty turn on Lexicon just at the end of the year. And I basically ended up in a 1v1 with a budget, I think it was like a $50 Minthara deck. And one of the things that was happening was that both me and the Minthara player were gaining a bunch of life, just kind of circumstantially.
Mm-hmm.
But then of course you get to that point where you're like,
what am I always saying, gamers? You have to turn off life gain if you're gonna play aggro or burn. You get this bullshit.
So anyway, For the Emperor is a fucking awesome Magic card, and I'm so glad that Warhammer 40k made it, because I don't think we would have seen that type of effect printed for a while otherwise, of just giving your board +2/+2 vigilance and lifelink until end of turn for 4. You're like, oh, maybe if it was haste or whatever, but when we're talking about cards of that value for that cost, for that effect, 4 is the only thing that I would ever reasonably try to compare to is a Chroma's Will, and that's an instant with just major upside of having
I think that's a whole genre of spells, actually. Wrath, now for Ruin, I think is similar. There's it's 4 mana sorcery, and if you're playing the low to the ground Boros aggro kind of game plan, you win the game with it.
Yeah. I'm actually gonna look that up because I'm like, wait a minute, is that a card that I just +1 counter? True, yeah. But in terms of getting, it's kind of interesting how they kind of that 4 mana, everything gets a pump, but all those pumps are variable, and sometimes it's instant speed, and it's kind of oh, maybe we'll put +1 counters on this stuff, or oh, we'll only give 1 keyword, and this one's just all right, let's just give +2/+2 vigilance and lifelink, and that sometimes is just a huge haymaker. Love that card, fits in a budget deck. The Minthara player was playing land that I absolutely love in Orzhov, Vault of the Archangel, where you can pay 2 black and white, tap it, and your creatures gain lifelink and death touch till end of turn. And because I finally added some targeted land destruction in the mana base, I was just like, hey, let's blow it up. We'll both ramp as the trade-off, and then I'll just slap you and keep that life gain lead on you. And the guy's like, well, fuck. Can't do anything about that. So... Mm-hmm. And then I think I eventually just finished it off. Mary, Esquire of Rohan was a Regent edition, and attacking with legendaries and eventually drawing a card was really great, so that was able to kind of inch my way ahead. I took out Goldhound, which kind of hurt, because I'm like, one, that's a good boy, that's a good dog, that also just circumstantially is a treasure. But I've just found every time that I've played it or had it in my hand, it just never really paid off in any meaningful way. Just the cuts have been hard.
Yeah, sometimes you gotta kill your darlings.
I now have a 50 some odd card consider box on my shelf of just all the Audra cards that I've gone through and have considered. And that was kind of part of the pile of stuff that I put into the deck, while taking a bunch of the really big heavy hitters out. And,
so now I'm sending you Judge Judy tapping her watchdog gif, and then I'm captioning it Audric 2.
Audric 2, yeah. So I might eventually be reaching the point where it's I just have such a surplus. that, like, you know, outside of investing in the land mana base, I'll probably have another deck. And I've been talking with Hobbs Q a bit, because I'm like, hey, you know, you're the artist proof guy. Do you think we can get in touch and get, like, an artist proof Odric of, like, either version that I can use to, like, kind of bling out my deck a little bit more? And he's like, well, let's take a look here. And the regular Odric, yeah, pretty good, but it's in, like, the currencies in, like, euros, I think. Or pounds, I don't know. And then he's like, the one you're looking for, I don't know, $35 American for shipping and all that other stuff. So I'm like, gotta think about it. But Odric 2, baby, it might happen. I don't know. We'll see.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, Odric as usual. I will continue to Bloodrick post on Twitter and on the podcast probably every week. Funny thing, let's talk about Lenny again for a second. Because I remember a few weeks ago when we were playing, you both were like, Cole, you gotta stop getting down on yourself about, like, putting down Killer Queen as, like, a concept, because I've always felt like I was just talking about it all the time, but then I'm talking about Bloodrick, like, all the time, so, like, what's the deal, right? And then Lenny, again, was like, you know, like, I'd rather hear you have that, like, familiar, like, keep talking about the stuff that you obviously love, but if you keep talking about, like, the pet deck and stuff, like, that is always a fun thing to come back to. Like, obviously, like, we're talking about, the whole concept of the podcast is to talk about, like, what games are we playing, how the games are going, what are we brewing, and stuff like that. And, like, Odric as, like, a card and as a deck is always going to be one that I'm filling with. Mm-hmm. So it's the fact that it's like, you know, hey, people do... You know what? Okay, actually, let's talk about that a little bit more. So I recently got a couple tweets headed my way. I think a couple weeks ago, Brendan was one of the listeners of the show who was coming over from Common Commander. He's like, all right. And I'm pretty sure it's him, unless maybe it's not. Maybe I'm mixing the Twitter account for whatever. He's like, all right, I'm finally going to do it. And I got a photo sent to me on Twitter of the alt art version that I love playing. And he's like, all right, finally it's happening. And I'm like, yes, excellent, awesome, amazing. I love it. And then I got tagged by Laura recently on Twitter, Laura Rose, or Technicolor Mime. And even she's like, hey, I think I'm finally going to do it too. I'm like, hell yeah, here's some stuff. And then she's like asking me, like, hey, did you put in Adult Gold Dragon in Bloodrick? And I'm like, once upon a time, I definitely did. Mm-hmm. And it was respected as a threat. And then I swapped it out for Othari Sun's Glory. So, yeah, it's just been nice to actually have conversations about the brew and getting people interested in it and seeing a vision of, like, what it's capable of. Yeah, just it's a lot more fun to talk about it now and keep playing it. So yeah.
I'm so glad to hear that. I'm really glad that your guy is picking up steam with other people, because the card is good. I'm glad that other people are seeing that, and that your work is your work specifically is what's touching people and, like, opening them up to the possibility of playing Bloodrick.
Yeah. Now this is the point where I tell you that I removed Descent from Avernus in the deck, so...
Cole.
There's the trade-off.
You're killing me.
I'm killing you. I know. I had to do it. I just couldn't. I was like, I need different stuff in here. So that was one of the cuts. Sorry to tell you this right now after having this huge uplifting moment. Oh god, I felt like there was something else there. Like, this was like when I made that big tweet about Odric like a few months ago, where I was just like, fuck y'all, I love this guy, this is my guy, and like a bunch of people, like, I don't know what it was, like everyone like liked and reposted and was commenting
Everybody
on it.
was matching your energy. That fucking...
Yeah, like most people were. Like some people were like, no, I don't know, this card sucks. I'm like, cool, I'm not talking to you. Moving on.
Yeah, you don't want to talk to those guys. You want to talk to those people who are also like, if Bloodrick has 0 fans, I am dead.
I'm dead, yeah. And I think, like, because I put the links in, like, even the budget one that I had kind of unlisted initially, and I finally took it out of it. Got a few engagements, but obviously, like, I went from, like, maybe having like 100 views from people initially when I put the deck together and talked about it to like over 2,000.
Holy shit, dude.
I was like, hey, let's check. Okay, time to update the deck. Why does this have like over 2,000 views? That ain't right.
Bloodrick posting, clap.
And it's been going up. Like it even went up like a couple dozen views or whatever recently. So it was like still doing the job. And then I'm like, okay, time to update this considering board to like whatever 50 cards I got. And then with the LGS trade-in credit, I will finally buy a Kark Clan Ironworks, which will definitely raise some eyebrows with what I intend to do with it. But I took out Inspiring Statuary because you still tap the blood token, which is part of the requirement to actually sack it. So I was like, let's just get the colorless mana so I can just do whatever the hell I want with it for like activated abilities and also sacrificing other blood tokens. So, yeah, that'll probably be real contentious. And then also I was told by both...
I'm absolutely going to break it on site. Make no mistake.
I think Trenton said something on a tweet I had earlier where I was like, I finally got a Kark Clan Ironworks. He's like, oh yeah, this card's cracked. And then Laura came in and she was like, you can grab this with Moonsilver Key. And I was like, what the fuck are you talking about? And then
it has a mana ability.
I keep looking at freaking Moonsilver Key. I'm like, this is fucking, what is this card? This is cracked. I don't know if I will put strong. I don't know if I will put Moonsilver Key into that deck. I don't think it's necessary to do that. Oh, and then I guess one of the last things was that I put Dan Lewis into... Okay, so what I did recently, this is... God, we're kind of at 2 hours now. Fuck it, let's ball.
We're already this deep.
We're already this deep. I knew this was going to happen. I'm like, this is going to be a long one. Let's talk about it anyway. So one of the recent transitions was I was like, I was really having issues with justifying keeping Space Marine Scout and what's his name? Knight of the White Orchid. And because I was having issues of like, I'm treating these as ramp and I'm treating these as cards with keywords on it, but how often am I feeling like I'm not only able to like hit the double white pip on the knight, but how good does it feel to cast it like later in the game, or how relevant is it? And I was just like, okay, we'll trim the Space Marine Scout and swap something in, and like, I can't remember what I swapped in, but it worked out. And then I was like looking at the knight, and I'm like, weirdly enough, I'm like, man, this double white pip sucks. So I'm gonna put in Loyal Warhound. But then later I put in what the heck is that guy's name? Pure Steel Paladin, which is double white pips. So I'm like, all right, so what am I doing here? So because I put in Dan Lewis from the Doctor Who sets, and his is a variation of like Bludgeon Brawl and Arterial Alchemy, and there's like a weird stacking thing where like one gets priority over the other, whatever. I just wanted Dan Lewis in there to be able to, like, if I don't have Arterial Alchemy, I can still make my blood tokens equip for 1 and give +1/+0 or whatever. And then I'm like, okay, so play Pure Steel Paladin, have 3 blood tokens out, have Arterial Alchemy out with Dan Lewis or whatever, and then I start making blood tokens. So now I am drawing X cards equal to the number of blood tokens I'm making. So then I'm like, okay, but then what's next? And I'm like, well, unfortunately, even though like I had that like Nazgul Battle Mace, and I originally had Cauldron Complete and like a couple other equipment that I was like fiddling around with. I'm like, I gotta take those out for like a little more efficient stuff, and I gotta rely on the combination of Arterial Alchemy, Dan Lewis, and Pure Steel Paladin to start making blood equipment that I can, for free, start slapping across, like, all my different creatures and just turn them sideways, or start drawing, like, a boatload of cards. Mm-hmm. And I was able to do that a little bit for, like, a game or two recently. But yeah, I don't know. I'm excited to give that a go. I got the Richard King Ferguson artwork for the Pure Steel Paladin. Nice. And I'm like, is this worth doing? And then I looked at Mary, the Esquire of Rohan and stuff, and I'm like, yeah, you know what? I think I could probably make this work. So, pretty interesting to see how that's going to work. Might swap in Kellen, Fey-Blooded, because when he gets equipped, all your other creatures get +1/+0 for each aura or equipment on him.
Yeah, it seems and he's like got that tutor way to make all of that spread, and yeah, you can go find whatever knife you need.
So yeah, and then finally I was like, man, my reanimation has been kind of going in and out. What am I putting in? And then I remembered that I put in Marshall's Anthem in my budget list, but I did not put it in the main list. Mm-hmm. And I just love that card. It's an Anthem that you can kick like one, two, or three times. It brings, yeah, it's still great. So yeah, Bloodrick has been absolutely. I've been training it up. I've been making him do laps around the schoolyard of being like, let's fucking whip you into shape, and it's paid off, and it'll probably continue to pay off. But I just need to calm down on the editing of it recently, because I'm like, I've lost my way, and even Fitz was like, yeah, you're like swapping in cards like every week, it seems, so like you got to calm down with that. So I think I'll stick with the current version and just feel it out, you know.
Yeah, you gotta give the cards time to actually see a bunch of gameplay experiences to make your opinions based on, like, a more complete set of information rather than just, like, one specific instance, because it really is a different board game every time.
Anything else? I mean, I imagine you have something else on the list ever since I was like, it's time for the Bloodrick Hour, and then...
Yeah, I got, some more fucking Doctor Who commanders to talk about. So I played my edit of the timey-wimey precon that I've lovingly started referring to as my TARDIS Simp deck, because it's all about that pretty blue box. Commander's the first Doctor, the companion is Ryan Sinclair, and we just make sure that I can find the TARDIS and cast it and get her abilities, and we're using Doctor Who cards to, like, maximize that. I played against a Mael the Anima deck that's, like, spending 5 mana and activating Mael's ability to put an Eldrazi into play, and...
Oh, no.
Gamers...
Jeez, that feels like old Commander. Like...
It is old Commander. Like, literally, that's a deck that Homegirls had since... just like a really long time. So yeah, if it feels like old Commander, that's because it is. We was going through it. She had us basically at lethal with like one of the Titans and the fucking Hamlet back Goliath. Man, what a card.
That is a card, yeah.
Yeah. We had precisely one combat to take Homegirl out, or we die. Just like, that's that. Luckily, had my guy, the War Doctor, on suspend. As you all know, big fan of that. We have another Jeskai Doctor Who commander deck that has that guy and Clara as the commander. So we're already big fans of his work, and we know exactly what he's capable of, and he's just the guy that we need to see right now. And he's coming into play this turn off of suspend. So we do that, we cast him, and we need to top deck a 1-drop for us to not lose this game to Eldrazi. And so we draw for a turn, and we find clock spinning. So we're in fucking business. So I tap another guy to crew the TARDIS. We go to combat. We swing the War Doctor, who gets haste from suspend. Shout out to that mechanic. And the TARDIS. We get the attack triggers for both of them on the stack. We let TARDIS's attack trigger resolve, and we give our next spell Cascade. And then, gamers, we cast Clock Spinning before resolving the War Doctor's trigger. And that's a 1-mana spell that has Cascade. So I'm looking for something 0 cost or less to cast with the Cascade ability, and I don't have anything like that in the deck. So we go through the number of cards in my deck, 71 in this particular instance, and put 71 time counters on the War Doctor. Once that fucking large number is there, we let that trigger resolve, and we blast Homegirl for 71 with the War Doctor's burn damage trigger, and that just deletes her. Dab.
Damn. Who knew? Who knew he had it in you?
Of course, we immediately died to the last remaining player, but it was do or die time one way or another, and I felt really good about taking out the biggest threat. Doctor Who Precons gamers, mix and match your commanders and companions, and have just really get in there and experiment with the card pool. That's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Further speaking on that, I'm exploring more TARDIS compatible commanders. Jenny, Generated Anomaly, is a Time Lord soldier, and she is a Boros commander who's gonna replace my Rograk and Kelith deck.
Okay.
Yeah, I've had Rograk and Kelith since Commander Legends 1. Deck kind of just sits on the shelf, so I feel like it needed some new breath into it to make it more appealing to play again. So we're gonna just make some edits, add a TARDIS of course, and have Jenny be in charge of that, because it's the same Boros aggro game plan and we can play the majority of the exact same cards. I just get to apply my the deck building sensibilities that I've developed in the amount of time that I've had since Commander Legends 1.
Yeah, I remember coming across her, and I just find it's now that we're back on Lost Caverns, I've gotten a bigger appreciation of Explorer.
Yeah, it turns out Explorer's actually extremely strong, and Jenny does that whenever she deals combat damage, and she's also got double strike, so you're getting that trigger twice if you're connecting.
Yeah, so pretty and yeah, no, that's gonna be pretty correct. And hey, more Boros stuff, yay! Not Bloodrick, I don't think I'd put it in Bloodrick, but I'd never say never.
Oh, you know what was fucking wild? I was playing a game the other day with at Vengabus MTG on Twitter, who has.
Oh, it might have been Vega we played, but yeah. Sorry, continue.
But yeah, they've got a Lesha deck that they played a Vile Entomber and then was thumbing through the library and then just chuckled and then put Jenny Generated Anomaly into the graveyard while I was playing my Jenny deck, and I'm just pointing at the camera you.
Yeah, the Spider-Man point. Hey, wait a minute.
Oh man, and she did so well on Vengabus's board. I was really impressed with her performance, and then I was just I knew it. I knew that card was good. And I hadn't had much gameplay experience with her, but she read really strong. Yeah, the validation is really good when you see somebody else playing a card that you think is good, and it's just yes, perfect. I knew it was good. Other people are playing it too.
It's again, it kind of goes back to the fact that other people yo, I'm playing Bloodrick, what's up? I'm yeah, I'm doing it.
Exactly, I'm doing the work. Yeah, maybe I'll do some Jenny posting on Twitter once I get this deck into shape.
Oh yeah, do it. That'd be awesome.
Hell yeah. We're just going to explore all of the TARDIS compatible commanders. I don't know if I'm going to do every Time Lord Doctor, but I might try every Time Lord that's not the Doctor. That'd be funny.
Yeah, it's that set. I know that I will largely leave the legendaries alone, but I have a feeling I will keep looking back at a lot of the instant sorceries that don't involve removing suspend counters.
Mm-hmm.
But
I think Quantum Misalignment is going to see a lot of play. I don't think I've seen it yet, but it's a non-legendary clone sorcery with a rebound.
Speaking of, okay. I just put a foil version of that in my brand new deck. That I built the Flip Jin Gitaxias.
Is this the segue?
This is the terrible segue.
All right, let's fucking go. Let's hip hop slam into it.
Yeah, because we're 2 hours long. Thanks for listening, everyone. So I finally was like, okay, so someone approached us both on something that I will not disclose just yet because we're
cooking.
We're cooking.
We're in the lab.
We'll talk about it. And then the Benoit, aka the Benoit on Twitter, has been. I'm in like, hey, I'm an Herbresk stan. I love Flipper Herbresk. I think all versions of Herbresk are cool. And he's like, ha ha ha, you gotta play flippin' Jin-Gitaxias, dude. And I'm like, fine. And so I've bought a couple of them over time, like the last 6 months or whatever. And I got like the oil painting like version.
Oh, the oil slick art is so sick, dude.
It's so good. So I'm like, okay, finally. So I've had a pile of blue cards in a deck box for like the last few weeks. I'm finally like, fuck it, fine, pull the trigger. And I basically made a control deck, a mono blue control deck of Jin-Gitaxias because I just and I did want a deck that like still was pretty cheap, and it is. And it doesn't have like free counter spells or anything, but I did want to make a deck that was like my Thrix the Sudden Storm deck. That has kind of like similar potential, but like with like a much higher ceiling of like the shenanigans I can do. It's the fact that the flip version can like bounce every non-Phyrexian and give you Omniscience when it flips back.
Every one of those chapters on that saga is a 6+ mana sorcery.
Yeah, it's actually. Oh, I only need 7 cards in hand and pay 4 mana to flip it. Yeah, that was fucking busted as shit. So I finally put that together, and I think after even everything was broken down, it was still like under $100. And I also just happen to have a quantum a Surge Foil misalignment that I opened from like my rando Doctor Who pack from like when this set came out. And I've been like, where am I going to put this? And I'm like, yeah, fuck it, I'll put it in here. So yeah, definitely looking forward to trying to bust that deck out. And I don't know, we'll cook with that and do something with it. I don't know, we'll figure it out.
Hell yeah, excited to see this particular flavor of villain mode from you.
Yeah, this is no, because like what I realized, like after I initially had everything down on my desk on my playmat, and I was like, I'm making trims and cuts, and I'm like, cool, I'm at 100 cards. Let's put it together in sleeves and then like leave it. And then when I put it in Moxfield later, just for myself, I was like, how many instants was there? 28. This is a control deck. And then I also like, how many creatures? 13? Oh no, this is a control deck. So,
I mean, not necessarily. It's a spell slinger deck, but a lot of those spells that you were slinging in mono blue, if you don't like make a specific goal they're going to be control spells.
Hold on. Let me go over the list here. I have Aetherize.
Mm-hmm. I'm hissing.
I have Engulf the Shore.
Mm-hmm.
I have Ensnare.
Mm-hmm.
I have Filter Out.
Mm-hmm.
A bunch of 5 mana counter spells like Hurl into History, Access Denied, Spell Swindle. I have Leadership Vacuum.
Mm-hmm.
I have Arbitrary Counterspell with Proliferate for the backside of Jin. Don't worry about it.
Of course.
I have Rewind, Supreme Will, Swan Song, Unsubstantiate, and Nexus of Fate.
Not the Nexus of Fate.
Oh yeah, we putting that in there. We doing that. So
you know how I feel about turn spells that don't exile themselves.
Yeah, we're just gonna put it back in the deck. Probably cast it for free and then draw a bunch of cards and do it again. No big deal.
Killing me.
Yeah, that's the whole. I immediately stabbed you with the news that I took out Descendant to Avernus, and now I'm talking about how I'm casting all like the meanest, baddest blue spells that isn't Cyclonic Rift.
Yeah, I'll never emotionally recover from this.
But yeah, Quantum Misalignment and Irenicus's Vile Duplication are in that deck, and they may or may not go on Jin-Gitaxias.
Yeah, of course, you gotta have more Jins.
Gotta have our Jins. Freaking got all 3 versions of Archaeomancer in here, with Scholar of the Ages and Shipwreck Dowser.
Mm-hmm.
And then, we got Talrand. We had to put in Cryptic Serpent But then we got Brawl, Chief of Compliance, Gale, Waterdeep Prodigy, and a Portal Mage, just to say, do not attack me, nice try. And then a Thrumming Bird, because
you're playing a Proliferate deck.
It's like kind of partial Proliferate. I just put him in kind of tacked on at the top if it just happens to do that, so yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty gross. We'll probably be super discussing when it's rolled out, and will be appropriately kept in check.
Yeah, I should throw something rude and powerful at it. I think that would be entertaining for both of us.
You'd be like, no, why are you doing this to me? You know why.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think that is it. That is it. We are now officially probably over at 2 hours. Well, no, we are definitely over at 2 hours at this recording. One last thing.
Oh yeah,
one last final thing.
2 hours and 4 minutes in.
One last thing that I've held on to for the last little bit and didn't get to mention the last couple episodes just because by the time it came up. So anyone who does know, or maybe found out later, I was originally running the Uncommon Commander podcast through this source, and then just retooled everything and put new cover and said, oh, let's do a podcast. And kind of one of those holdovers is obviously getting comments from people from old episodes before the transition over. And I always shouted out Brayden, because Brayden's always like commenting. And when I said, oh, hey, I'm transitioning over, he's like, oh, yeah, awesome, no problem. One other message popped up about a month ago. And it's by this guy named Tristan. I don't know who he is. I don't know what his socials are. Always one of those like silent listeners that finally come out of the woodwork and they're like, hey, what's up? I do listen to your stuff. Okay, bye. And I'm like, bye, stranger. I appreciate you. Tristan says, when I had asked, will you listen to the Heroes Blade vibe check? He said, yes, I will. Had no clue this was a feature, aka the comment feature in Spotify. Mm-hmm. Your content helped me keep sane during my overnight shift 2 years back. Been a great ride as a silent viewer, so sticking with it for the long haul. So yeah, here we are. Thank you, Tristan. You're now listening to
shout out to you, Tristan.
More 2 hour long episodes in the pipeline for sure at this point. And yeah, we will use that as a place to end the episode. Thank you for listening to this incredibly long episode. Thank you for listening so far as we venture into the new year. And I guess the question is, what are your New Year's resolutions for Magic?
Yeah. All right, let's get the hell out of here.
See ya!